Okay, hello everyone. We're just getting everything set up. Okay. Okay, sorry, Danielle, because I'm screen sharing, I can't see anyone. Has everyone inside the waiting room, from the waiting room?
Yes, everyone is here from the waiting room. You are still in presenter view. I don't know what happened.
Oh.
It was fine last time you tried, but it's not a big deal if you want to just proceed to the land acknowledgement.
Okay, for sure. Okay, so I just want to welcome everyone. Hello. We are, sorry, I'd like to just welcome everyone to our first session of the morning. This session is being presented by Beka and Harmony Cohen, how experiences in nature can shape your time and teaching practices as an occasional teacher. So just before I hand it over to the presenters, I'd like to start off with our land acknowledgement. So I am actually living and working here in Toronto, and so we acknowledge the traditional territory upon which the conference is being hosted. For many thousands of years, the Huron-Wendat and Petun First Nations, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit, have sought to walk gently on this land. This territory is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit, as well as by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the land and resources around the Great Lakes. This acknowledgement signals our desire to seek a new relationship with the original peoples of this land, one based on honor and deep respect. And it is a starting point to remind us all to enact this work in our personal and professional lives. Thank you. Okay, so at this time, I'd like to, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Great. So at this time, I'd like to present Beka Lee. So Beka is an outdoor education specialist supplied with the Toronto Outdoor Education Schools. She has a primary junior classroom teacher for 5 years and a graduate of the OISE and UT Masters of Teaching program. She is currently on an action research team for environmental education. So welcome, Beka. And I'd like to present Harmony Cohen. I believe that you two are presenting separately, but I'll introduce you together. So Harmony Cohen is a graduate of York University's Gender and Women's Studies program. Harmony is an occasional teacher and outdoor educator in the TDSB, where she has been building shelters and making fires with students for the last 6 years. Harmony also serves as chair of Obsidian Theatre Company and as vice president of the Bain Apartments Cooperative. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks so much. Should we get started here? All right, here we go. Really excited to be here. We're going to be talking about how experience in nature can shape your time and teaching practice, especially as an occasional teacher. So it doesn't matter who you are listening right now, everyone's going to get something out of this. And if you're an occasional teacher, you're especially going to get something out of this. And if you're not, I want you to think of like how you can be inspired by this. So I'm just going to introduce myself a little bit in Harmony, and I just want to know who you are who are listening. So my name is Beka, graduated from OISE. Right after graduating, I got a full-time teaching job, taught for 5 years as an elementary school teacher. And then I did the reverse of what a lot of people do. Then I went into occasional teaching and I got my environmental education specialist and became a supply, so an occasional teacher for TOES, which is Toronto Outdoor Education Schools, as an outdoor educational specialist supply. And Harmony?
Um, I graduated from the York Integrated Fine Arts program, and I'm an occasional teacher for both outdoor ed and in classrooms. And I've also worked as an eco coach for eco schools.
Awesome. So we wanted to know really quickly too, before we go on, if you can just type in the chat, like who you are. Are you an occasional teacher? Are you a classroom teacher? Are you an admin? What is your role? Are you an outdoor educator? Let us know in the comments, and it kind of helps us form our, our presentation today. I'll just take a quick peek here. Occasional teacher, awesome. Yes, David is our principal. Harmony and I's principal is David. Welcome, David. I'm so glad you're here. You're going to see all your centers being featured. Awesome. Okay. So great to see who's here. So part of what I'm doing, I'm on the TDSB Action Research team with Hillary Inwood, which she's one of the co-chairs of this whole conference here. And that research team educates through research. So it's current teachers who are practicing in their classrooms, and it goes to help pre-service teachers in their decisions. So my research that I'm doing, so when I was a full-time teacher, I actually was on this team to show how art can be a beautiful way to infuse environmental issues. Once I became an occasional teacher, I had to switch my whole research, and that's what I want to present for you today. So because I wanted to be actively researching what I was, so an occasional teacher who is teaching outdoor ed, that is what my research became. And the problem is that I find a lot of people, once they graduate from their teaching program and waiting to get into their full-time job, see that time as dreaded, or like, oh, I can't wait to get that interview, and it's stressful and you never know where you're going to go the next day. And I wanted to shift that feelings by kind of researching. So I kind of put on my researcher hat while I was occasional teaching. And these are some of the questions that kind of came out from it. So how can experiences in nature help to shape that time as an occasional teacher? And what are some of the transferable skills that can be used once you do have your classroom? And what communication skills can be learned? And how is mental health impacted in nature? Because it is a stressful time for a teacher, that limbo period. But I really hope to switch that view for you with this. So one of the things, I went way too fast here. So my unique perspective, like I said, I was a full-time teacher who became an occasional teacher. So the lens that I have when I'm at these nature experiences, it really helped me think, oh man, if I was a pre-service teacher waiting to get in, I would have loved to have these experiences, because it really, really can inform your teaching practice. So that's the perspective I have, being, called in for one day, but in my brain and my heart as a teacher, knowing what the after effects and trickle effects could be in the classroom. So that is what we're going to be bringing to you today. So no matter who you are, you're going to get this out of it today. You're going to see how nature-rich experiences can influence your teaching practice, how they can impact your mental health in positive ways, and also shape your personal time. And I want, just before we start, I did a photojournalistic style research. So there's no words after this, it's all photos. And every single photo you're going to see was either taught by or experienced by myself, an occasional teacher, and Harmony, who is an occasional teacher. And she'll tell you a bit about that. She's been a 6-year occasional teacher, so she has lots of experience with this. I want you to keep in mind how powerful nature-rich experiences can have on your personal and professional growth. And I want to challenge you, if you're not an occasional teacher listening today, how can you support, partner, and inspire an occasional teacher? And the goal of this study is to present at teacher colleges, so U of T, York, Queens, Trent, etc., so that they are able to just be inspired before they go off in their limbo time before their full time. So that is the research in a nutshell. And so here we go. First point, how nature can influence your teaching practices. So like I mentioned before, all of the experiences I had as a supply teacher with outdoor ed centers in Toronto. These are 4 of the main ones that I taught at. So this is Warren Park, this is the Island, this is Hillside, and this is Forest Valley. So all of the experiences come from these 4 beautiful places. So right away, I wanted to show you, this is the structure class. Isn't that amazing? So learning about triangles, the foundational shape, taking the kids right out in their community. They're seeing the buildings that they pass every day, seeing the bridges they drive across every day, but they're learning it live, and it makes structure such a more powerful lesson. So, having this experience as a supply teacher, imagine how that impacts your class later. You could never just hand a handout and say, circle the structures, right? You would have this thing in you to want to bring your kids out and experience it in their city, in their area. Or taking them to one of the outdoor ed centers that TDSB has and getting them, to build structures. This is a little fairy home. So just really enriching the lessons there. This was a learning I had. So I took my kids to Downsview actually for this one, and I learned about the honey locust tree. So it looks terrifying, these spikes, but we learned that the northern shrike actually needs a honey locust tree to open up their seeds and to be able to eat. So it was such a beautiful learning moment. And again, the perspective I'm coming at, so occasional teacher who was a full-time teacher, imagine the writing that can happen after this experience when you go back to your school. And art, oh my goodness, I can never do art the same after being in these outdoor ed centers. So gathering things, making beautiful compositions, learning about the elements of art through the nature that's found around you. If it's a nice day and not raining, so that rain doesn't ruin your paint, bringing your kids outside to do even any art project or a nature one. So here the kids at Hillside are painting using paint chips to make beautiful things. And this one here, you can see that we actually use mud, dandelions, and leaves as our paint. So again, just really enriching your art program, or, again, for the occasional teachers listening, all those little experiences you have, like your brain and your heart would just explode with ideas of like what you could do to bring it back once you have your full-time classroom. This is Danielle. She's actually our Zoom host for today. So she is with Friends of the Rouge, and this is at Hillside. We were catching crayfish with the students, and we were putting them in the bucket, and they realized that 80% of them were dead. And so they were asking why, and we're like, I don't know, it could be a lot of things. So the kids were guessing, we were guessing, is it the water too warm? Is it too cold? Is the pH off? How are the oxygen levels? And so we actually asked Danielle, like, hey, the kids had this question. Can you help us answer it? So again, inquiry-based learning, and just this experience that I had, again, as an occasional teacher, it could just really launch something with a full-time class that I had. So anyways, the kids did some cool pH level testing, and also the oxygen levels in the water. It was a really cool day, and that was all from them. And then again, studying about rocks. You can never just have that rock hit in your class once you go out and actually experience. This is Brett Wilcox, who was at Hillside, and just cracking the rocks open with the students and learning about them in such a tactile, beautiful way. So again, it just has such a huge influence on, when you do get your full-time class and you do get your full-time job, if you can make that in between limbo time intentional and get yourself outdoors, it's going to grow you personally and also professionally in your practice. What about mental health? So this was kind of like a question I had, but I realized how much this was a thing. As an occasional teacher, I just found my mental health, instead of being stressed, it was so much more calmer because I just was able to see things differently. So this is at Hillside, I'm giving myself a clay mask here in stream. I have this beautiful view. This is my teaching view. How can you not feel calm and just uplifted and excited when this is your surrounding as a teacher, right? So again, get yourself intentionally out when you're in that occasional teaching time. This is a first aid training we did with the outdoor ed staff. So that was, the wilderness was our classroom for two days, and just normal views to see this beautiful nature. This is Lynn Shores, where we take a lot of the kids who go to the Hillside. And again, it's just so serene, and crossing this bridge with the students, I just your heart is just so full for so many reasons. You're breathing fresh air, you're feeling the sun, you're hearing the kids' excitement and giggles. It just does so much for your mental health. One of my favorites is getting called as a supply to go to the island school. So this is Betty, one of our supervisors there, and we're headed over on the ferry in the morning. This is sunrise. Isn't that a beautiful way to start your day? How amazing would that be to start on a calm Lake Ontario, heading over to the island, watching the sunrise with fellow colleagues? It's just, again, mental health wise, I just absolutely looked forward to my commutes, even because I don't drive. I TTC everywhere. And I just found even my TTC rides, walking to bus stops, I just was enjoying that quiet downtime and taking in nature. And then the learning views that you have, right? This, I love seeing Toronto from the other side. And just, again, I notice myself stopping and noticing, which is my last point, is how nature can actually shape your personal time. So originally with the research, I was thinking of, again, from when you graduate to when you're trying to get that full-time job, seeing that time as beautiful and a gem, because you're never going to be able, once you get your full-time job, which is wonderful, but you're never going to be able to be that flexible and intentionally, volunteer at this outdoor center or do these times in nature. So just seeing that time as something that can be shaped to help you professionally. And so then I ended up finding out something else with this. It really shaped my actual personal time. So I want to show you that. So got my first raincoat because I actually wanted to be outside when it rained and see nature in that way. I noticed the views going to the bus stop. I would actually stop and whip my camera out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the sky's so beautiful today. So I just found that whatever I was noticing while at these outdoor ed centers and doing my supply work, it was trickling into my personal life. So this is the morning view going to the bus stop one day on a supply job and just taking that moment. This is my daughter and my nephew at Lynn Shores. This is where the deer come out at dusk. So I had just been with my students there during the day, took my family back at dusk because that's when all the deers come out. And again, it just kind of trickled into our family time. It became my husband and daughter's favorite place to go. So again, experiencing it during the daytime with the kids, but then taking your family or yourself back at other times in the day. And I just found it as a teacher, right? We all have our education from our classes. So you can't help think, oh, I could do this in the classroom, or I could show them this plant tomorrow when I come back. So allow nature to trickle in. Go to a school's playground that you're going to be supplying at and take a look around on an evening walk in your neighborhood and see what can inspire you for when you get called in to teach there, right? And then just kind of be familiar with that area, let it infuse and infiltrate in your personal time. Again, these are all Lynn Shores, which I take my students in the day, but at nighttime going back with my family and just literally seeing it in a new light. And this is a part of our city in Toronto that I never knew about until I was a supply teacher at these outdoor ed centers. And now it's just a part of my everyday. So you get to see and explore our city, which is a huge advantage. And these are some of the things, right? Kingfishers and blue herons and Canadian geese and deer, all of that within minutes from where you can live. And the last slide here, just noticing the small things. Again, my time as an occasional teacher, putting myself both volunteer and paid positions to be in nature. I just, now every time I say chicory, I can point that out to my daughter. I never noticed how many of these caterpillars were out until I was surrounded by these kind of people. And this is a beautiful bush at the end of my street on one of our church properties, and they call it the burning bush. And it was just a moment of chatting about plants and everything. So I just found that it was such a beautiful way to be infused in your nature time. So I want to end on two quotes. I'm a quote girl. This picture was taken at Hillside, one of the outdoor centers. So this is horse poo with a beautiful pearly mushroom growing out of it. And I think you're getting the analogy here, right? So we can see sometimes as things as like poopy times in our life or just not a good time, but really there's like gems that can come out of it. So sometimes you have to let go of the picture of what you thought life would be like and learn to find joy in the story you're living. So again, it's going back to occasional teacher lens, seeing that time as a time to find joy and inspiration and personal and professional development before you get into your full-time teaching career, and just kind of shifting that. Or if you already are a full-time teacher listening right now, same for you, right? Seeing your time with these students until you retire as a joyful time and a time where you can inspire and just have such a big impact in in what you do in the outdoor and indoor world. Last quote before Harmony: don't underestimate the seismic power of the tiniest mental shift. Your life is a reflection of your mindset. Level up your thinking and everything else will follow. So I challenge you to have that mental shift about supply teachers or occasional teachers, or just being outdoors or exploring your playground. Do those mental shifts that it takes to see how there's joy all around you and learning all around you. And I'm going to be passing it over to Harmony right now. Just before she gets her slides up, I wanted to co-present with her because we had this beautiful bus ride stop on the island one day talking about outdoor ed, talking about classrooms, talking about being a supply teacher. And I just thought Harmony is the example of my research of someone who is taking that time between graduating and getting the full-time job and just living it up and incorporating nature and allowing nature to really influence her time now and for when she has her full-time class. So Harmony, take it away.
Thank you. Wow, so that's one of the joys of working in outdoor ed and being an occasional teacher is that we get to meet so many amazing people all the time. And so I'm really grateful that Beka asked me to participate, and I'm grateful to be here with all of you today. So as we were saying, you know, I'm a second career teacher, so I graduated 6 years ago, and I have been occasional teaching the whole time. And maybe it's because I just got joyful about it and I just haven't left. I don't know, but it's fun and it is flexible. And I work in both the outdoor ed department and in regular classrooms all over the city. I've worked with thousands of students and I've been all over. And it's the best. Like, I don't know how to say anything else about it. I want to just encourage, because I'm just looking at who's in the room here. So I see that we have some people who work in the outdoors or who are environmental ed, who are all the way across the country in Victoria, and some local people here too. So I hope that what I have to say makes sense for everybody. But I thought that since Beka was talking about her shift from being a full-time teacher into outdoor occasional, I thought I would speak about my own experience working in both, and how I've sort of taken, because it's been my whole career, outdoor experiential pedagogies has basically shaped my teaching practice. And it's, I use those practices whether I'm in an outdoor classroom or if I'm in a regular school. And I think it's a unique perspective. There's not that many people on our board who do both, and literally in each week I would be moving back and forth. And when you do that, it really normalizes things that we come to perceive as being, special, because, you only get your one outdoor ed trip a year, and, it's a separate place and exciting. So I guess I'm wanting to talk about that because I think there's a lot of interest in to integrate more outdoor ed into regular public schools. And I guess I just want to say, yeah, no problem, can totally be done. Don't worry about it. But in order to do that, I think we need to just let go of a few things, And I think pandemic world has really gotten me into letting go of things, because it's been a really crazy, challenging year. If we can just all acknowledge that right now, it's wacky. It's a wacky world, okay? And this year I'm working for the first time in a full year LTO. I'm working at Alpha Alternative School, and it's a downtown urban school. And I'm working there all year, and we've been going back and forth, school and online, and it's crazy. So even though it's been really challenging, I think that there's a lot of, it's providing an opportunity for a seismic shift, okay? And here's my thinking behind that. In the pandemic, there's nowhere to go, right? We can't travel, we can't go on field trips. Our outdoor ed centers are closed right now, and we're being supported online and in our schoolyards when we're at school. But there's nowhere to go. Okay, so we have to just stay where we are, which is in our schoolyards. And also the other thing is that the pandemic has really added some extra motivation for us teachers to not be in a room with our students all day. Like, we want to get outside now, right? We're ready, like, get that airflow happening, like just space. And I think that that's really excellent, because it's providing the extra push that I think teachers have needed, because I think there's a fear, like a lot of us, we feel like, well, we're not experts, we have insecurity, we feel like we have no resources, no support, we don't have a nice schoolyard, like what are we supposed to do? How are we going to do it? So I want to just talk a little bit about, what are the things we can do? So for me, coming into this urban schoolyard, and I'm telling you, like, it's asphalt, a few wood chips, like 6 trees. It's, surrounded by a chain link fence with busy streets, and then condos, and then more condos that are being built. So it's very, very noisy, and like, it's not like a peaceful kind of an atmosphere. It's like seriously downtown. And I got there and I thought, like, what's going to happen? Okay. So, so I'm just going to start where I am. Okay, this is the land that I have access to, and this is what we're going to do. I want to encourage everyone to just get into normalizing outdoor experiences and just make it an everyday practice. We can just let go of the idea that outdoor ed happens somewhere else. We can let go of the idea that nature is somewhere else. And we can let go of the idea that it needs to be some mind-blowing experience that only happens once a year, right? Let's just get into it. Let's just go every day and see what we can do. So here's some things that I've been working on with my kids, right? Like, I want to provide opportunities for inspiration. Like Beka was saying, like, if we get outside ourselves, we get inspired and we want to like go and like show the kids things. And we want to just be that, like, provide those opportunities. And if we can start doing that, we can open up awareness for the kids. They can deepen their connection to the land, and we can get into some stewardship, which is ultimately, I think, where we need to get going to. But these things are all going to happen simultaneously and in different orders. So I start with awareness, some basic awareness practices that we can get into. They require absolutely no planning, no materials. I do not approve of materials. Like, just go. So for my kids, we just start small. Go out into the yard and count how many living things. How many different kinds of living things are in your schoolyard? You don't have to know what they're called. How many different kinds of trees? We can ask lots of questions. How can I tell that this shrub is different species than this one, right? Start asking questions about, trees, which are so important in a schoolyard on a hot day. Like, I start asking questions like, gosh, I wonder how this tree feels with its roots underneath the asphalt. How does it get water? I wonder who makes their home in this tree. I wonder, what are all the different gifts that this tree gives us? It gives us shade when it's hot. In the fall, we get to play in the leaves. In the spring, we can tap it for sap. There's all sorts of things that we can talk about just by starting to look around, right? When our awareness turns on, we realize how much there is, even in an asphalt schoolyard, okay? There's always going to be a little bit of dirt around a tree, so that's a great place to look for tracks. Mud and snow, your best friends. right? So we kind of start to open up our awareness. Then I go into sit spots, bird sits. Sit spots are a great pandemic activity. I highly recommend because the kids have to sit really far apart from each other. And they're just starting to use their senses. And it's just a really important thing that we start to build awareness. I'm working in elementary, so it's about getting the kids kind of outside of themselves, right? Starting to understand like there's a bigger thing going on. The great thing about working in a schoolyard is the kids already have a connection to that land. They've spent their whole lives there, right? They've made their friends, they've played games, they've been injured, so many social dramas, like, it's all happening right there on that land, but it's a human-based experience, it's insular. And so when we start building our nature awareness in the schoolyard, then they start opening up and realizing that even though they're the dominant species on that land, there's other things happening. Okay, like mind blown there. So then I start getting into, I've been working with the kids on just deepening their connection, picking up on the different kinds of animals. Now in my yard, we don't get there's not a lot happening. So imagination is my best friend. So we've been working on building our skills, animal adaptations, like deer ears, owl eyes, stealth, fox walking, camouflage, another great pandemic game because they're just hiding by themselves places. But just embodying some of the animal behaviors, it piques their interest. It still gives them that sense of inspiration. And I'm serious about the skill building part of it because I tell them, like, I'm not making this game fair. Like, I'm going to be ruthless. If I see you move, you are out. Like, it's nature, get over it kind of thing. And they love it because they feel like they're intrigued. And these are important things to link together. So, I mean, the activities are important, but it's the debriefs, it's the opportunities to ask questions and share their ideas that are the most important because that's how the kids are going to learn together. And I always I litter my classroom with field guides. I've got tons of these little things. I pick them up at Value Village or whatever. And they're young kids, but I mean, they're the full adult field guides, and they love to get into things and they'll start bringing stuff into the classroom and trying to figure out what it all is. A stick or a leaf or whatever, they just go crazy for it because they want to be involved with it. So I just think that those are really important points. And I just want to give you a quick example, but so weird. All of a sudden in 3 weeks, we had all this wildlife. We had a raccoon and a wood duck that got separated from its flock in migration, and we had to call Toronto Wildlife, and they came and talked to the kids about it. And then a red-tailed hawk came and picked up a pigeon and ate it in the schoolyard at lunchtime. And the kids were so excited because a week earlier we had been playing hawk and mouse, and there was a big debate about whether a hawk would be allowed to tag a mouse while they were gathering food. And we kept saying, well, what would happen in nature? And they were like, well, the hawk would just come and eat the mouse because it's not that they're unfair or they're cheating, it's because the hawk has to survive. So when the real hawk came and ate the pigeon and some other kids were freaking out, they were saying, no, it's okay. The hawk is not bad. The hawk is just having lunch, and we all just need to be respectful and watch from a distance. But that was just at King and Spadina, I didn't think that would ever happen. So it's kind of amazing. And yeah, and so then they started getting really into birds. And before we went into lockdown, the kids were working on building bird feeders they wanted to put in the schoolyard. So that goes into our stewardship piece of just wanting to make sure that we're, improving the land or making it more habitable for other non-human people. So that's kind of what's happening in our everyday kind of a practice. But I also I want to just make a note about community, and community is a really important value, especially in the outdoor ed and environmental ed communities, because often we're the minority and we need each other to like get our work done. And it's a really important thing that we are experiencing together. So I try to foster I take the time to foster community within my group or with my class that I'm working with. But it also is really, really important to me to foster community with my colleagues. When I started working in outdoor ed, I mean, as an occasional teacher, I'm from the few people who have that experience, it's like you feel untethered, like you have nowhere to go, you have no home. You don't know who to talk to if you have a problem. And our outdoor ed department in TDSB is like amazing, and they treat their occasional staff like as equals, which thank you. But we're invited to go to PD, we're invited to staff meetings, to trainings and certifications. If you go into one of our centers, the supply staff is up on the board with a picture with all the other staff, so the kids know who you are. And it just feels great. So of course, when I go into a regular, traditional school, then I'm looking for that same thing. I'm trying to foster that community. It's a value that I've taken with me. And, it's an important thing. I'm like chatting people up in the staff room, like trying to find out who the people are that I should be talking to. And I don't know why we don't do this more in public schools, but in outdoor ed, of course, we have the opportunity to collaborate and co-teach. And there's no better way to learn, right, from each other. So I make a point of seeking out partnerships. And if we want to make cultural shifts in our schools and we want more outdoor ed happening, then we need each other. We need to support each other. It's a lot of work, physical, mental, emotional work. And the way that we're going to make a shift is through actions, and they have to be visible actions. So that's when you start getting away from your everyday practices that you can do by yourself. If you want to plan something bigger, something more visible that can inspire your staff or change your school community culture, that's when you're going to need other people. And so we need to focus on building those communities. So I'm going to now awkwardly switch into a screen share so I can show you a couple of slides of some examples of what that might look like. Pardon me while I do this. Okay. So here's our schoolyard at Alpha. As you can see, we have our 2 sugar maple trees here. You can see all the condos around. That's kind of how we roll. And then here's an example of something we can do together. It takes not that much energy, but at Alpha every year they tap the 2 trees that we have in the schoolyard for sap. And these are some pictures of the honorable harvest. So we're teaching the kids, first we lay our hands on the tree, we ask the tree permission to harvest some of the sap, and we promise that we will only take what we need and we will not take any more. We drill a hole, the kids insert the spile, hang the bucket, the whole thing costs about $30. And the kids give a gift of tobacco at the base of the tree to show our gratitude for the gift. Oops, excuse me. And we collected 30 liters of sap, which gave us about 2 cups of this really thick syrup that I made by boiling it on the stove in the staff room. And then every kid in the school gets like 1 cracker, and we just put a little bit of syrup on each one. And and by the way, I didn't create this program. This is something that happens at this school every year. But one of our teachers, Emily, will share stories about the gifts of the maple tree while the kids are eating it. And they made the observation that they felt like the sap was sweeter, probably because of all of the joy of the kids on the schoolyard. And I just thought that was such a beautiful connection. This is my friend Victor, who I met. He's a full-time teacher, and I met him in a staff room, and turns out he likes tracking. So we're out on a tracking expedition. And I had the opportunity to do an LTO at his school, and we decided we would do partnering. So we created a fire building program at the school. And this took a lot of energy. This is an example of a program that takes people and community. He and I had the skills and the experience. We put our classes together, grade 2 and 3. We built bow drill sets and had the kids learning how to use bow drills. The kids made bannock dough, their own bannock dough. They cooked the bannock. We harvested spruce needles for tea, and they learned different awareness things, and we learned fire safety, and we were outside all day, and it was -20. We had like 5 parent volunteers. The administrators had to be on board, the parents had to be on board, and it was just this kind of a beautiful thing that happened. And there's Victor. Good to partner with people who have camping gear. I highly recommend. And I just want to say that this one day that we planned turned into a program that we ran at the school for a year. And we worked with classes between kindergarten and grade 6. And what it did was it helped the other teachers saw what was happening. They saw the possibility of the schoolyard, and they wanted to participate. So this is us doing the program later that year in like May or June, with our fire in the back. So yeah, so those are some things that can happen in a schoolyard. It can happen because you can get your experiences through volunteering and supplying in outdoor education, by talking to people, getting some of your own experiences, and not being afraid to speak up in a new school community and say, I have a skill, I can share this with people. We can make it happen together. It takes extra work, but this is the way that it has to be if we want to make a shift in the culture. We have to show what's possible, so that's all I'm going to say about that.
Thanks so much, Harmony. So if anyone has any questions for either Harmony or myself, whether it have to revolving around outdoor ed, or even the fact that we're both vocational teachers and kind of see outdoor ed in this view, feel free to ask. We have a couple more minutes before we have to close up for the next session. Thanks, Sarah.
I think there was a question, but may have been answered in the chat, just from Sarah. Do TOES educators offer any professional development to classroom teachers? Maybe that's something Becca and Harmony can speak to if you've had any experiences.
Yeah, I'm glad David answered. So David is the principal of the Toronto Outdoor Education Schools, who's on right here. And so he had mentioned that on the website, there's a lot of support and also online office hours to support teachers, and lots of lesson plans and resources. So if you go on the TOES website, you're going to find a lot of support. And like David said, you can always reach out as well. And they, even through the pandemic, have been coming to playgrounds at certain times when it's allowed to do outdoor ed with the teachers and their students on the school property.
Question here. So as an OT and being in a new school, in a new class, what do you consider before taking the students outdoors?
That's a great question. I'm all about prep. So when I had my full-time class, we did this, and it works for outdoor ed. So I like even indoors or outdoors, wherever you want to do it, getting the kids to act out what to do, what not to do. So it's kind of funny, right? So it's almost like a theater-based way of learning what to do in your outdoors. So I get them in groups to brainstorm, like, what should we do when we go outside, right? Harmony mentioned a couple things, right? Like noticing, realizing that we're part of, you know, the outdoor space, even though we're the dominant species, all that kind of thing. And then you get them in a funny way to act out what not to do. So like, don't rip off the leaves off the branches and whatever. So the kids kind of have a really fun time acting out the what not to do. And it makes it look so ridiculous that when they go out, I find they're very respectful and understand, you know, how to use their voice, how to use their body, how to be looking around. So practice, you can't just take your kids out. So doing a little, just like maybe even a walk around the playground one day, and the next day is you're doing a bit of a wider walk and noticing some things, right? So definitely scaffolding is great.
I would also add to that, like as an occasional teacher, if you're only there for a day and you don't know the kids, I do a test to see if I can trust them. And I tell them this is like, and what I say is like, I have an idea for something amazing that we can do. But if to do it, I have to know that I can trust you. So I'm going to give you a series of challenges. And if you succeed in those challenges, I will know you have the skills to do the amazing thing that's about to happen. And so I do little like things like, you know, try and get them like line up in a line alphabetically without talking. So you can show me that you can listen to each other, that you can follow instructions, and just a basic like task like that, to try and get them to buy into it. But also if the behavior, if there's some kind of dynamic that I'm not already aware of happening, it's going to come out in that exercise. And then I can reassess the plan and go, okay, I think we can just hang out in here today, or like, I want to do this, but I'm not sure we have the skills. So let's figure out how we can get it.
Yeah, that's great. And it's true when you're in for the day and you're not going to see them maybe the next day, doing the scaffolding within that short time. So doing like an indoor talk about going outdoors, taking them for the close walk around the school and seeing how they are, right? Like, don't be afraid to tell the students, you know what, we were going to go over here, but you know, some people aren't listening, and then right away they'll kind of, you know, get in line again, and you can feel safer bringing them out to maybe a different part of the playground or doing something extra cool.
Okay, amazing. I think we have just a few more minutes left if anyone wants to get in their questions just before we close.
I would say too, like getting, like if you know the school you're getting called into, seeing who some of the staff are, you might like, or talking with other people, other colleagues, like who are the eco teachers, or finding out who the eco club teacher is when you go in, and just connecting with them in the morning and just saying, hey, I'm here. I heard you're the eco teacher, and even just seeing what they're currently doing. And even with you being there for the one day, you can kind of figure something else with that. So don't be afraid to ask questions. And if it is a school that you're on repeat teaching at as supplies, you really get a chance, like Harmony said, to build those relationships, go in the staff room, talk to people. If you volunteer at the outdoor ed centers, you're going to get to know the staff really well. Like Harmony said, they're wonderful at just answering any questions and helping you along the way, because we're the ones who go in for the day. They get to be there every day, but I just find them so inclusive and supportive. So just don't be afraid to ask and make those connections, even though you're not in yet. Oh yeah, I did have our contact. Thanks, Danielle. I'll put it up on the screen as well. Let's see if I can get to that slide. Ooh, here we go. If you want a screenshot or just copy paste from the chat. We don't have a handout, but feel free to reach out to myself or Harmony if you have any questions. We'd love to help support you as an occasional teacher, or not, even if as a teacher, and just helping you kind of see that the lens of an occasional teacher and how you can support them, or teacher candidates, right? This kind of goes for anyone you're working with who is in the teaching world, and how you can support them and partner with them.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Beka and Harmony, for such an enriching session. It just reminds me of the keynote from yesterday, and just reminding us that it's really important for students to get outside and use the outdoors as the classroom. So thank you for that. And thank you for all of the folks who attended the session today. If you would like to, if you have any more questions, please feel free to grab Beka and Harmony's emails from the chat. Once we close this window, they will also disappear. And then there's also, great networking opportunities throughout the day. So please feel free to connect further. And with that, I think I'll just close the session as we take a break. So thank you again.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.